Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist. It is Wednesday, the 8th of April. It is Wednesday, right? It's still not the weekend. We're rushing towards the weekend. I have got everybody. Surprise. We have got Marie Delafont is my guest host this morning. Hi, Marie. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Normally I pop them in one at a time, but I got everybody. We also got Daniel Fisk Bennett from American Atheist, Washington State Assistant Director, and we've got Holy Kool-Aid down there. Thomas
Hello.
Westbrook.
Good to be here.
Good morning. Yeah, hi guys. How y'all doing today? It's early.
It's morning.
It's morning. Early. It's very early. Yeah. So thank you all for joining me. If you don't mind, take a moment. I want to say hi to the chat. Hello, everybody in the chat. They're all getting rolling. Brainbug, Doc Fearsome, best name ever. Paul. Good morning, Paul, and Sandy the Sane. A couple of my patrons here in the chat. Good morning, everybody. Guys. Good morning. Thank you for joining me. There was some scheduling confusion. I will take the blame because I can. But we have Thomas and Daniel here at the same time. So we're going to have some fun with it. Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Fantastic.
Tired.
Waking
up.
Yes.
I'm realizing I'm super pixely on the screen. My internet sucks.
Ooh.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
Don't worry about it. I'll troubleshoot over here. I just want to say I'm aware.
Okay. All right.
Just call it 8-bit. We'll go with it's
It's retro.
Good call. Yeah. Well, we were talking about those who don't know, Holy Kool-Aid, Thomas and Eric from Talk Heathen are roommates. And we were divvying up who owns what as far as the studio, if I remember correctly. Marie, I think Marie was giving away. Is it Marie was giving away your studio to Eric? Am I right?
well,
Thomas is
it's a shared space. So I'm using Eric's camera, but I've got my lights and mics and a computer and everything. But we both use this studio, and it's actually proved really helpful, not just to us, but to the community as a whole, because when people come through here, then we're happy to help them and get them set up. And I've been mentoring Jenna Belk, who is a new host on the Atheist Experience. So she'll stop by sometimes. And although lately with the whole social distancing thing, she hasn't been over in a while. But when she does come by, then, I'll help to show her how to set up a show and how to get things going. And if I can help people in the community using the resources that I'm very fortunate to have, then I want to help as much as I can.
Well, this has proven particularly handy during the whole cooties thing, right? So now you guys are transmitting from home. Yeah.
Being able to work from home is definitely I'm very, very glad to be able to do that.
Okay, so I got a little bit of a confession to make here. I see your studio. We talk about some. My wife hates it when I talk. But here we go. I see your studio, and I'm actually working to emulate y'all's studio. You look like you have a professional. It looks like a studio. I know you're in a home studio. I've worked very hard to try to make a good YouTuber looking setup studio, but I also want something that looks like a professional studio. So we're going to take half this room and emulate what you've done, put the stuff on the walls and get the different angle. So I can have a studio looking environment, and then also this one here.
I'm really digging the look that you have with the kind of the purple glow in the background and stuff, and the knickknacks on the shelves. It does look very good. It looks very good. And I, considering usually most people take a year or two to really develop the live stream professional look, or even just to get the video stuff down, then I'm pretty impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of people out there who don't realize, as somebody I watched your videos. Me and the wife watched one of your videos the other day. And it's a lot of work. People don't realize how much effort it takes to build a YouTube channel and to be professional about it. It's you, obviously. How many subscribers do you have now?
112,000.
Yeah. Work.
So I'm curious, are you, obviously you're learning and you're taking a lot of different inspiration from different places. Do you happen to watch Nick Nimmin on YouTube?
I do, actually. Yeah.
Okay,
Very, yeah.
because I saw the purple glow in the background, and he has a very similar blue glow,
Mhm.
and I know he does YouTube tutorial videos and stuff, and so a lot of people have been inspired by his work. But I actually, when I lived in Thailand, I was about 5 minutes from Nick, and
Really?
met up with him and got coffee, and he's a good guy.
Wow, that's awesome. You know, that's exactly kind of what I did. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. What do you do? What do you do? You know, so I went on
Mm,
YouTube and I went to start a YouTube channel. It's like, okay, well, you do this, and you.
yeah.
Originally, I started with scripted videos. I still do them. It goes, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. You know, as far as and then of course with studio, you do this. You put the color D lights. You put a light on you. You kind of dark back there a little bit. I mean, I just followed the directions that they
Mm,
said. Really.
yeah.
The wife, she, if there's any style or taste involved at all, though, it was hers.
Yeah.
But it was just following. Matter of fact, YouTube, TubeBuddy, and Nick Nimmin.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of, if anyone who's watching is interested in starting their own channel, there's a few places that are a few channels that are really good about giving advice and tips and stuff, how to get things right. Daryl Eves has a great channel.
I like him.
Tim Schmoyer. There's several others that give fantastic advice. And when you might not have the slightest clue how to put in tags or how to do a description or how to do search engine optimization, like how do you write it so that it's something that people actually search for, so it'll rank in YouTube, because YouTube is a search engine. A lot of people don't think of it that way. And then when it pops up, is it visually appealing for people to click on and stuff? There's a lot of things that behind the scenes, that it's not just video editing. It's not just having crisp and clean audio and having good timing and everything or good pacing. There's so much more to it from a marketing perspective that a lot of people who are starting channels, they don't necessarily realize that. But once they do, then they can really start to grow and take off.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people because of what's going on in society now. There's a lot of people who are taking up the whole calling to become a YouTuber. Actually, I guess it's more Instagram and all those other things. TikTok. You were talking about TikTok earlier.
TikTok.
My wife was sitting on the couch and she's just laughing. I'm laughing and laughing. I'm like, well, what is going on over TikTok? She's watching TikTok, so she's advised me to take up TikTok and start doing TikTok. So that's.
What angle would you do with that? Like, would you do because I think Anthony Magnabosco is doing like TikTok street epistemology.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Could you do?
I was thinking about. I've had this notion of doing a travel blog. Okay, so I've taken up the atheisting. Like I'm atheisting over here. I'm an atheist doing something, so I'm atheisting anyway. So like my Twitter handle is atheisting1. And my intent has been to do a travel blog on Instagram with photos, because I don't know, I'm learning Instagram, and behind the scenes with my dogs, because they're my technical crew. If you watch any of my videos, at the end it has Sadie, Bailey, Daisy, Jack listed off as camera, sound operator. Those are my dogs, and I was going to do behind the scenes with it. Maybe I should do that with TikTok.
Okay,
just a notion.
Yeah, when I first got into doing this, I actually thought of, because Holy Kool-Aid was taken on Instagram, but I was already Holy Kool-Aid on YouTube. And I wanted to be, because I was traveling full time, I wanted to be the atheist nomad. And then I went on and I looked up, and there was already someone called the Atheist Nomads. But it was Atheist Nomads plural, but it was too close that I was like, nah, I'm not gonna step on those feet.
No. But so do either one of you, Daniel or Marie, do TikTok?
No, I've been thinking about it though. Those are the videos make me laugh my ass off. But it's just another application to have on my phone when I'm trying to wean off in general. But it's very appealing.
I have an account. I only have one video, and it's not that great. It's me with a bobblehead Jesus going like this.
Well, the wife's pretty smart. She's way smarter than I am. Way smarter than I am. So whenever she says things like that, I usually have to take her. But like you said, Marie, it's just another application. I've got YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Those are like the old guard. And then there's Instagram, and now TikTok, and then there's Snapchat. And where does it end? Which ones do we focus on? Reddit.
Until you die, that's when it ends.
Well, I'm an old guy, so
it'll be sooner.
Always the optimist. That's awesome. Yeah. Hmm. Where have you lived before, Thomas? Kristen from the Best Name Ever in the chat is asking where you've been before and where have you nomaded to? To where?
Where have I been before and lived before? I mean, all over. I was born in California, but I mean, I've lived everywhere from Kazakhstan to, I've been to Kyrgyzstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, the country, Russia, Afghanistan, Dubai, Thailand, Vietnam, England, Mexico. It never stops. But if I stay in one place too long, I start to get restless. So you can imagine how this whole shelter in place thing is. It's. I was actually supposed to. I think this weekend I was supposed to be at the American Atheist Conference, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe next weekend, but it got canceled. And a couple other conferences I was supposed to go to one in the San Francisco Bay Area, and that one got canceled. And everything is all it's all canceling because of coronavirus. So it's but I can't complain. I have it better than most. I'm fortunate to be able to work from home.
It is, huh?
What did you think of Kazakhstan, Thomas?
I really liked it. It was different. I mean, I've lived in kind of the Soviet bloc for about 15 years anyways, so it was nice to be able to go back and practice Russian. And I actually studied abroad there for a semester. And Astana, the capital, they just changed the name of it. I forget what the new name is, but they just changed the name of it like a few months ago or a year ago. But it's a brand new city that the president has pumped all of this oil money into. And it's a city kind of right in the middle of, you got these plains of, just tons and tons of just grassland. And then out in the middle of nowhere, you got this city that just pops up. And I mean, it's beautiful. Everything is like, white marble, gorgeous, or not white marble. What do you call it? I'm thinking of some. It's got all these modern looking, gorgeous, beautiful buildings, but it's there's not very many people there. It's not a huge city, and there's like almost no tourists. So you might walk down the street and have a few locals here and there, a few people here and there, but it's not like you would expect from somewhere like Bangkok or from Ho Chi Minh City or something. So it's very different. And then yeah, I could talk for a long time, but
that's interesting. I have a friend who went to Kazakhstan like 15 years ago to convert people.
Yeah.
And now he's not Christian anymore, but he's going around talking about his experience with the Kazakh people and like how maybe we shouldn't convert them and that they're just fine and that they're wonderful people. He even wrote a book about it. So that was just so random to hear that you'd been there too.
Yeah, I actually, it was kind of a similar story because I had done a study abroad in Russia, and then I transferred to Texas A&M. And Texas A&M, because I was doing international studies and political science and double majoring in Russian, and they wanted me to do another study abroad after I had taken INTS 201, like their international studies class, after I'd taken like a year of language classes there. And then once I did those, then I was like, all right, I get to do another one. This is cool. And it wound up being cheaper to go and study abroad at another school and transfer the credits in than to actually stay and do a semester at A&M. So it worked out, and I still got my financial aid. So it was a perfect situation. But when I went there, the reason I did Kazakhstan is I needed to go to a country that spoke Russian. And it was a toss-up between the Ukraine and Kazakhstan. And I had kind of been flip-flopping back and forth on my faith. And I figured I'd give it one last hurrah just to like see if God would, if it would work out between me and God. And if, I was kind of learning more and more about science and evolution and all this stuff. So I was already having these doubts, but I found this guy who he was a missionary in Kazakhstan, and he's like, hey, we want some students to come and get plugged in with the university, but be a part of this Southern Baptist organization.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, that's great. It sounds like an answer to prayer. If anything is from God, this is probably it. And I went and I joined this program, and pretty much the whole time I just found myself not in it. Like I was I went and I tried to be good. I tried to, you know, preach to people, you know, kind of subtly whenever I could, and, you know, get plugged in with the local church groups and stuff. But in terms of really wholeheartedly believing it, like I tried, like I would read my Bible and I would explore these topics and stuff, and I would do, you know, devotions in the morning. And my roommate was also, you know, he was a missionary, and we were trying to be lights of the world. And yet I found myself more interested in TED Talks, and I found myself learning more about abiogenesis and learning more about, you know, the Big Bang and the origin of life. And as those pieces all came together, by the end of it, I was just done. I wanted to, you know, just, I'm like, these people don't need saving. They're not broken. They're not damaged. And I hadn't really thought of it that way before. I think a lot of times missionaries go into things thinking that, but I'd traveled enough to know that like people are just people. But
Yeah.
even still, it was, by the time I was done with that program, I was almost done with my faith. And within a year, I would say I was an atheist. A year and a half or so before I was like out.
I feel that.
Yeah, it's not the first. I've heard of several people who've done some sort of missionary work as part of their story. Sorry, I'm a little distracted by the chat. I have a question for Daniel, if we have a moment. Let me pop this up.
Yeah.
How is your organization holding up amongst the cooties? Any event cancellations or rescheduling besides the, because we already know the American Atheist 2020 in Phoenix has been canceled. That was going to be my first one, man. I started this channel last year. I started the Daily Atheist Morning show in December. I was really hoping to get to go to the American Atheist. They'd given me a YouTube table and everything. And then this happened. So what else has been going on?
Well, for American Atheists, from what I mean, remember, I'm the assistant state director for Washington State. We have no acting state director, so as it stands right now, from what I understand, everything's just kind of on hiatus and has been pushed to next year. The other things that I do, pretty much for the most part, have been unaffected, with the exception of some of the stuff that I do in my state. Obviously, the escapades and poking the bear, per se, has been put on pause.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
There's
Kristen from the best name ever from the chat also wants to ask you, Daniel, have you ever been abroad, and what's your favorite country?
I have been around the world 3 different times. Norway would be my favorite. That was absolutely gorgeous in Norway. I've been to the North Pole 3 times. That was also interesting.
Really?
Wow.
For clarification, I was in the Navy for 8 years.
I was going to say, how many people did you convert?
None.
Just stand
To
on
nuclear
themselves.
power, maybe? No, I never did any of that stuff. Not a believer, so.
I actually joined the Army and then unjoined the Army, and it was very complicated. I thought I should have joined the Navy because I would have enjoyed seeing the world. With people who have stories like Thomas's, that's I mean, my little experience in Texas and New Mexico ain't nothing compared to those. I have a comment here in the when Miss Aletha, I hope I'm saying that right. Jaden says, when I was a kid, I thought everyone knew the Bible was just stories, but everyone just pretended it was real because they liked the book. I had kind of a, I don't know about you guys that were believers before, but I had an experience as a child. Well, it was always an experience when we were reading the Bible or something like that. It always felt like it was a joke. Somebody's going to come out and go, you know what, we're kidding. So I kind of relate to that. There you go. And Gary Priestley was in the Navy. He says it was awesome time in the Navy. So fellow Navy person there. And Doc Fearsome wants to know if Daniel is the Kingpin's brother.
The Kingpin's brother.
Word for word. I don't know.
I've been expressly told by Paramount not to comment on that. My comment was brought to you by Carl's Jr. So.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So let me get back to you, Thomas, if you don't mind. How long have you been doing the Holy Kool-Aid?
I think I started full time in 2016. My first video was 2015, but I was not able to do it full time. I had a full time job, and it was just kind of my way of tossing these ideas around. And when I went full time with it, it was right after Donald Trump got elected. And I decided I need to do this full time. I need to start getting videos out on a regular basis. And at first it wasn't, self-sustaining, but I, sold everything I had. I took out a business loan. I took out my retirement, and I lived in one of the most affordable countries to live in overseas, and to stretch out my finances. And when you take the plunge like that, you have to hustle, because if you don't catch up and you don't start breaking even quick, then you're not going to make it. But I had a little bit of a safety net. I had a point where I was like, okay, if I drop below this amount, I'm coming back to the States. And if I drop below this amount, I'm getting a job, and basically saying, okay, I tried it. I can keep trying it, but I can't keep doing it full time. But fortunately, people, when I mentioned that on my channel, I was like, hey, I'm been doing this full time. If you want this to keep going as a full-time show, I'm kind of nearing that point. And people came in and they supported the show on Patreon, and it's really thanks to my viewers and subscribers and patrons that I've been able to keep doing this full time and grow the show.
That's wonderful. Digital Hammurabi asked a question. I just got to say, I get distracted and I try to get them all, but I may miss them. My apologies. Anyway, I missed his question, or their question. I'm not sure if it's him or her or they. I'm sorry. Anyway, shut up, Chris. The question is for Thomas.
Anyway, shut up.
Well, if it's Digital Hammurabi, it's both him and her.
See,
two people running the channel.
Of course. Thank you. I believe it's yes. Anyway, Thomas,
it's Josh.
Josh, yes. How difficult is it to be an amazing YouTuber who responds so effectively to Catholic apologists about the? There's a smiley face.
Well, that's a reference to, I have a series called Nothing Fails Like Bible History, and I've been responding to a guy named Trent Horn, and it definitely has taken a lot of work. It's been easier because Digital Hammurabi actually helped me out with some of my references and helped me out with, there were a few points where I was like, is this true? Is this like, because you can fact check so much online, but without expert help and stuff, you can hit these walls. And so it's always helpful to be able to have someone to reach out to who has spent 4, 6, 8 years or more studying a particular topic, and you can be like, what's going on here? Is this right or not? And like literally Josh responded with pictures of academic books. Like I was asking him about, like, does the word Elip in the Old Testament, does it mean clan or does it mean 1000? And he like takes these pictures of, like, he just happens to have a book or like 2 books around on the exact topic that I'm talking about. That's so niche no one else would have heard about it. Pulls up the exact page number, takes a picture and sends it to me. I'm like, fantastic, that's awesome.
Well, he's either giving you all the blame or all the credit. I'm not sure. He said it was all you. That's what he says in the chat. It was all you.
He's humble.
Yeah. I'm just trying to catch up here. Yeah, part of the deal, like I say, I even apologized to the guests beforehand. I'm like, listen, I got 4 different screens up. I've got, so if I don't keep up with the chat, my apologies. Actually, if you'll tag me, I'm more likely to see it. And I still got to get Digital Hammurabi, both of them, on the show. I'd love to get both of them on the show. I actually went through this. They put the, I want to shut up, man. they put the email address in the chat during the show, and I was like, oh man, so I had to go back and look, and it was really easy. I found it. When I found it, I was like, oh, you couldn't have remembered that, jackass? Anyway, so I went through all the effort, and then the wife distracted me. I don't think I ever sent them a message after all the...
Well, if you don't have the email still, then they're very active on Twitter.
Yes.
So they should see something if you reach out there.
Gotcha.
That's one more platform that you forgot to mention there.
Oh, did I? Yeah, Twitter. I do tweet. I'm a tweet. I tweet. Matter of fact, I even Twitch. Oh no. This is no time for romance. But I do Twitch. I'm a Twitcher. I Twitch. I'm a new Twitcher. I'm a newly Twitch.
When I hear Twitcher, I just think of someone who's like tweaking, who's like drugged out of their mind and just like.
Then it worked. Yeah. So Kristen, and she got me into Twitch. I already played games, and there are a lot of our fellow atheists. There she is. There are fellow atheists like Matt Dillahunty, who also Twitch. He twitches as well. So I went and watched him Twitch. And now I Twitch. So I just love the terminology, the way the word it works for me. So I Twitch fairly regular. But I changed. I'm going to do it during the day. Do either of you Twitch? Are you Twitchers?
I spasm sometimes.
I don't. I've thought about it because for a long time I didn't. I was a gamer all growing up, and then when I got into Holy Kool-Aid, I just didn't have any time. Mm-hmm. But now I'm starting to realize that in order to not get burned out, you have to have a little bit of a work-life balance. Mm-hmm. And if I'm gonna play a game anyways, during my off time, I might as well stream it out, and people can potentially join in the chat, and I could make some money off of it potentially. But the downside to that is then I'm never able to just shut off and just separate and detach. I would always be on, always be streaming, always have something going on. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily the most healthy thing.
Thank you. Thank you for saying
I'm
that.
kind of weighing the balance.
Real quick, we've got a large audience here watching, and some of them have come in and didn't miss the introduction. So I want to reintroduce people for those who just got here. And thank you for the new subscriber. We've got Marie Delafont. She's a life coach. She's actually, I didn't give you the chance to introduce yourself this morning. I'm a bad person.
I'm Marie Delafont, and I'm a life coach.
Well, no, I was going to continue, but I thought I would let you, because that's just one of the facets of your diamond, right?
What else? I need to have like a chart on my wall, because I don't even remember everything that I'm involved with. But I'm Marie Delafont. That's not really my last name. I made it up. And I do life coaching for all sorts of things, including ethical non-monogamy. I'm an activist for non-monogamy, ethical non-monogamy. I also am the manager for Dave Warnock, who's doing the tour about dying out loud. He's dying of ALS. He's a former Christian. He talks about living your life and being in your moments. And so I've been traveling with him for the last year, talking about dying. What else do I do? I'm the virtual assistant for Dr. Marlene Weinell, who wrote Leaving the Fold. And so I help her with her work. What else do I do? Oh, yeah, I have a podcast called Everyone's Autonomous. And it's a podcast about how to embrace your autonomy in a post-religious world or body. Like, now that you've left Christianity behind, what is your life like now that you're a Homo sapien like the rest of us? We just had an episode about poop on April 1st. So that is definitely something that you should look into.
You've peaked.
I've peaked and or jumped the shark, whatever you want to call that. I think that's everything I do. I'm trying to look around here. I think so.
Well, thank you. And we also have Daniel Fisk Bennett from the American Atheist, Assistant State Director from Washington State. And he's joined us. So if you don't mind, Daniel.
So, yep, that's the kind of side project that I do. I got my main hustle as well. Like Thomas has his main hustles as well.
Right.
In fact, I helped Thomas with some of his main hustles as well.
Yeah.
I'm all over the Facebook part. Everyone has their, see if I can put this right. YouTube over there with Thomas. We got podcasts up there and live stream YouTube up there. I think I pointed that accurately.
You got it, yeah.
So I guess I'm the Facebook guy. So I got AAPN and the entire community that it encapsulates it. We've got our feelers everywhere on Facebook. So if you were in the atheist community on Facebook, if you were in a group on Facebook, type my name. Chances are you'll see me, or or even more likely, I'm an admin.
Okay. Yeah, you're kind of everywhere. I noticed that.
And it doesn't show me as the admin. Look for specific pages like the Atheist Directory or the Scientific Atheist or other things like that. I own those.
Gotcha. You know, I gotta ask, am I listed in the atheist directory?
I could probably look it up.
I need
Most
to go
likely
look.
You are.
I'm working that way. I'm working. And then of course, thank you. And then of course we've got Thomas Westbrook from the Holy Kool-Aid. Matter of fact, it was Aletha who said she knew who you were, Thomas. She just didn't know who the other. So yeah. So Holy Kool-Aid YouTube channel, and then of course Instagram, right?
Well,
you told me I forgot. I'm bad.
I have an Instagram, but my big things are I do Holy Kool-Aid, where I make animated laser focused videos talking about science, skepticism, religion, philosophy. But then I also have a conference called the Faithless Forum that I help organize, and that's a yearly conference in Austin, Texas. And on top of that, I used to have a podcast with Rachel Oates and Rationality Rules, but that has been it was taking up a lot of time and it wasn't really yielding as many results as YouTube. So we kind of focused where the 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle, dictated we're having the most effect. But it looks like Marie is now not pixelated anymore.
Hey,
yeah, you can see me now.
You can see you. Hey, that's
These are my arms, and this is my face.
Wonderful. All right, so this is the second year, or hopefully will be the second year of the Faithless Forum. Is that correct? Am I mistaken? Third year. I was testing.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while now, but it's grown every single year. It's at least doubled. So the first year we had about 70 people. I think the second year we had about 170, and sold out completely. We had a wait list that was bigger than the list of attendees.
Wow.
And now we're shooting for 500, but I don't want to necessarily say anything right now about it, because with the coronavirus pandemic, it's not exactly the best time to promote a conference.
Of course.
So it's I'm not going to make any statement one way or another on it right now.
Yeah, of course. Well, with it, like the American Atheist Conference convention. They've just rescheduled it for next year. It's going to bounce that puppy back, and hopefully by then we'll all be sort of back to a form of normal. We'll see, and then because I was really looking forward to those. Like I said, I just popped my head into this atheist sphere and started running these things, building my YouTube presence and my channel, and all of a sudden it all collapsed because now I can't go to the American Atheist thing. I can't go to this. I can't go to that. So hopefully the at best we'll be able to do the thing. The YouTube thing, because everybody's at home willing to do it. So now that we've done all the introductions, I want to get back to, you didn't think I could remember, did you? But I did. I want to get back to the Twitch thing, because what you were talking about, Thomas, is kind of true. I stream 6 days a week. I try to drop a live video on the day I don't stream. So it's a lot of work, and then to sit there and I'm going to relax, right? This is my chill time. This is my downtime. But let me put a camera on that. And now I have to perform. It's dance, monkey dance, when I normally would be chilling. And that's the only thing about Twitch that really kind of has me not twitching more, is that I just want to chill. I don't want to have to, perform.
Yeah. No,
I think it's up to your own individual cognition, right? Like, I think some people will be able to do it and it won't mean anything to them one way or the other. It's just like, cool, people can tune in and watch me do this shit. I don't give shit, a shit one way or the other. Mm-hmm. But if we have cognitions, like it sounds like Thomas and Chris, you both have, like, where you're feeling that pressure, or you're feeling that performance, or that being watched, and that's stressing you out even further, then that's clearly not helpful. But I could see people doing it and it doesn't really matter.
Different strokes.
I mean, I tend to be pretty extroverted, and I love public speaking. I love being around people and stuff. But when it comes to live streaming, there's so many different technical things you got to worry about, making sure that, the audio's coming through right, the video's coming through. And I guess if I were doing this on a daily basis, it would just be super, just very comfortable and natural feeling. But I'm not there yet with live streaming. And I think at least overcoming that hurdle would be a stressor that I'm just choosing to put towards Holy Kool-Aid rather than towards a Twitch stream at the moment.
Interesting. Yeah.
Although I did just do a live stream that for the most part was very, like, everything worked without a hitch. I was amazed. I did a live stream with Dr. Paul Offit. He's on the FDA's, I think it's the vaccine and immunology like advisory committee, or I forget the technical name for it, but he's basically on the front row of, if a vaccine comes through for coronavirus, he makes sure that it's safe. And he also was the inventor of the rotavirus vaccine and has been all over the news. He's been pushing back against the anti-vax rhetoric. He's the director of like a children's hospital. So it was really, really a cool find to be able to have him on to talk about, how do we find a cure to a virus? How do we develop a vaccine for something like that? And that stream actually went over really well and was really smooth. And you were talking about, you reached the height of your career talking about poop.
Yes, I did say that out loud, didn't I?
Well, my fault.
I had someone on my channel who has literally saved millions of lives. And there was a point in that stream where he talked about how he thought that the coronavirus was spread through, in addition to through droplets, it's also spread through the fecal oral route. And he said that, people don't realize it when they don't wash their hands after going to the bathroom, but you can spread fecal matter everywhere. And so I had a point in the stream where I was like, so you're telling me we're just literally all living in poop? And that was probably the highlight of the stream.
The highlight. You're going to add that to your highlight reels?
Yeah, you got someone, MD, super professional, developed a vaccine, saved millions of lives, and I'm sitting over here going, so we're all living in poop.
At least you're keeping it classy.
At least, I'm matching intellect levels, right there. Just super classy.
I saw that. That was very impressive. One of the things about being a content creator and trying to drive it as hard as a full-time job kind of content, I don't have a lot of time to watch other people's content. Do you have that same problem?
Other people have content.
yeah.
I have the exact opposite issue. It's funny. Yeah. I'm always constantly searching for content because of the platforms that I run. I mean, people are always coming to us for questions. I mean, it's awesome having people like Thomas every so often putting his videos in with AAPN, because we're able to share that kind of stuff, and it's free advertising for him, which is fantastic. And it goes, as I said, along with the message that APN, science, skepticism, technology, etc. But keeping people constantly reading or understanding what they are reading. Some news networks, without copyright infringement, say understanding the news. For us, is understanding the science, and on the other side is understanding why this is either bad science or pseudoscience. And me having to constantly deal with the fire hose of information or bullcrap that comes my way, it's always trying to stay on top of stuff. So it's an exercise in the thumb constantly scrolling on the phone. He was like, okay, what else? And being able to answer those questions, because there's a lot of people who they're genuinely concerned, but they want to have the right answer. And I feel privileged to be on a platform where we have earned that credibility, and people will come to us because they know we're reputable. And that was the hardest thing, and Thomas could attest to that, developing reputability with your audience is very hard.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I didn't really realize about Thomas was that really, that's why I asked Thomas. That's why I put you on the spot about watching other people's content. To be honest, I haven't watched enough of your content. I didn't realize you did do live streams. I didn't know a live stream was out of your normal bailiwick.
I don't know how you live stream a cartoon.
I don't usually. What I'll do, I actually can live stream cartoons, which I've never seen anyone do that before on YouTube, at least not within the atheist niche. But I have a system set up where I have a cartoon character that's rigged to track my eyes and my mouth and everything, and then it looks at the wave pattern of the audio, and it syncs up the little speech patterns basically based off of that.
Oh, that is so cool.
So if I go, oh, it like has an O mouth and stuff like that. And it follows and tracks me as I move around and stuff. And I can have hotkeys to where, like, if I press a particular button, if I hold down M, then I can make him mad or or angry or whatever, and he turns bright red and gets like really angry, and his eyebrows slant.
Oh, wow.
So, and and there's things I can do. I have a little animated vomit thing where if I'm just like, a little cartoon character, and I have that all set up. One of the reasons that I haven't used it is because it's got one program on top of another program, and then having a virtual webcam that's pulling that feed. And so there's like 3 points of failure. And when you're in a live stream, almost always something goes wrong with something. And so having those 3 programs running and having, a live stream broadcast that's then taking that camera and putting it out, then you've got a 4th point of failure. And you're running all these programs. They're using all of your computer's resources, and then they're putting it out to the internet. And then you've got to hope that your internet speed is good enough to be able to handle it, and that everyone will see it, and that your webcam doesn't pop in and out. And as soon as it does, then you have to restart the whole thing to have it detect your camera again. So it's let's just say it's not reliable enough, but I do have it in place, and I've thought about using it, especially if I were to hit the road and travel again and not have my studio. That's kind of what I got it for, was I can be in a hotel room with horrible lighting and just pop up my webcam and do if I ever go on a live stream of anyone's, I can just have my little cartoon guy instead.
Gotcha. MathPig does something similar where he's got a little talking hat.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I don't think it doesn't move with his mouth and stuff like yours. It's just a.
Huh.
But that's interesting. I understand what you're talking about all the points of failure and about all the. I mean, one of the lessons I started with, like Chris from the Atheist Pastor. He's in the chat. He's a friend of mine. When I first started, I started using Streamlabs or StreamYard. Now you guys my guests we're still using StreamYard. You're over there. But I pipe you all into OBS. So StreamYard's a point of failure. OBS is a point of failure. And then we've got my camera. I've got 1, 2 camera. I mean, the more you add on, the harder it gets. Of course, I've got a computer. My computer's a beast. I'm an IT guy, or was an IT guy by profession, and had some coin for a while. So I tossed it all at a really badass computer. So the computer's not my problem. But I could see how in your case, that would, as you stack those programs up, it starts to weigh down like a bunch of anchors pulling behind your little computer there. And any one of them could sink it. So.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I do have a pretty beefy machine, but when I was doing it before and setting it up, it was all running on a MacBook Pro, and having all of that on a laptop starts to weigh it down. I probably could do it on this desktop, but this desktop is Windows, and if there's anything less reliable than a laptop or a Mac laptop, it's a Windows computer.
Yeah. Well, with my OBS, I am doing it on Windows. So before the show, I have to make sure I have this set up first. I got to have my headset on. I got to make sure it's hooked up. I've got to turn that on and get it over there, because if I don't do everything in the right little order, something won't work. You can go back and watch my previous shows. I have audio. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. It's moving over there. I can't see the thing. Or we'd start the show. Oh yeah, man, it's been a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
But again, if you wiggle and you kind of hold everything just right, it works. I've actually
it's like an antenna from the good old days.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Kristen was asking why you've deprived us from this, Thomas, and I guess you already answered her question, because it's very intensive on the computer. Is Eric here?
Yeah, he is.
Wow, Eric. Hi, Eric. How are you doing? Wonderful. Good morning, Eric. Hi,
Eric is starting a new podcast.
He is. I'd like to get on his show if he can. I don't mean to presume, but I'd like to get on his show. Swinging up, baby, swinging up. Yeah, him and V, they've both been on the show. They were wonderful. Every time they come on the show, every time they've each been once, my Facebook gets this flood of like love from these people I don't even know. They're like, I love Eric Murphy, and they do. It's wonderful. Daniel, whenever we get a minute, I'd like to seek your advice on some Facebook stuff. I have a Facebook group, and I'm a member of several Facebook groups, and I try to spread my nutbaggery through the Facebook groups, but it's also kind of a line you've got to walk, because if I go into some Facebook groups and I go, hey, look, I just dropped a new video, here's a link, they're going, we don't like spam in the group, and so some people consider it spam, some people don't. How do I tell which one is which? But so far what I've done is over the last 6 months as I've been dropping videos, I've added some new groups and I politely ask, and if they don't mind, I do the thing, or if I miss it and screw up and post and they don't like it, then I stop posting. I've been trying to be careful. What are your thoughts on that kind of spam?
Facebook is an area of many cultures. If anything, you almost need to keep a Rolodex of who is okay with what, especially if you're going to be active in things. So it takes time to really understand, who has what culture of what, and sometimes you're just not going to get it right. It really goes with it. Some groups have some very extreme rules that are rather draconian, in my opinion. Others have little simple rules, but can trip you up. Like one of the things with AAPN, for instance, I could use one of my platforms as an example. We don't like it when someone is showing some boulder dash that they found on the internet that directly links to that person's website. We don't want to accidentally generate revenue traffic for those idiots.
Gotcha.
So we would ask and said, hey, put a screenshot of it so that way we can all laugh at it. But please do not make it so that you could click on it, because even a click is revenue if they have any sponsored content. So it's little things like that. Other people just have, they want their brand only. There's a few groups that are like that they only want their stuff. You'll have some admins who are their show only kind of admins, and they just happen to be around long enough that they have 1,000 or 2,000 people that have been in that group that don't really do much except for listen to this one person prop themselves up on a soapbox, and that's about it. So it really takes, you have to know the neighborhood. You have to think of it that way. It's a neighborhood. Some houses are more friendly than others.
Gotcha. I understand. Yeah. Well, Thomas, you would actually, I guess, be the expert here. And there's several content creators. A lot of my friends who are in the chat are also fellow content creators, like Atheist Pastor and Math Pig and Grumpy Old Dude. They're all fellow content creators. How instrumental was Facebook to growing your channel? If you said just after Donald Trump got elected, you started taking YouTube seriously. So did you went from, how many subscribers did you have then to your 100 and something now? And how did Facebook affect that?
had, when I went full time, I mean, I started off right around the time I was looking to quit my job. I was pretty much a brand new channel. I think I was under 1,000 subs, and I was around 200, and then I met Aaron Ra, and he shared it to Facebook, and he had enough of a following on Facebook. I think it got me up to about 800 subscribers. Then I did a video that started taking off that him at Meta, the Friendly Atheist, shared, and that got me probably around 1,500 up to about 1,000 to 2,000 subscribers. I was sitting at a few thousand. I think I broke 10,000 by the new year. So by 2017, I had 10,000. That was in about a 3-month span, and or 4-month span. So then from that point, as far as Facebook being helpful, I initially had set up something called, I think it was called Mass Planner. It doesn't, and
that's changed now.
Yeah, but you had to be careful, because if you post too quickly anywhere, Facebook's like, that's spam, and they'll disable your entire Facebook account. So if you've been building up this Facebook account with all this content, and then all of a sudden you lose the account because you're deemed as spam, that's high risk. And Facebook's pretty good at detecting that stuff. So Mass Planner actually had something called spin syntax, where you could take something and have particular words and phrases that it could substitute in and out, and then have a similar post with different ways of saying the exact same thing. So you could put, for example, instead of, hey, check out, you could have, don't miss or go watch, or different ways of saying the same thing. And then you'd have the second part, my latest video, my latest work, the latest from Holy Kool-Aid. You could have these different things that it would, pop in and out. So it looks like it's a different post and different text, but it's all automated. And so there's different variations. There might be 100 different ways of saying the same thing. And then you would have that cross post to different pages and groups. Now, very early on, as I was doing that, and I had some different sock puppet accounts and stuff on Facebook to share out content to protect my main account from getting banned as spam. Pretty much all my sock accounts got flagged as spam by Facebook.
Really?
And because I mean it is kind of it's an automated way of growing. It's an automated way of sharing, and most people don't want an automated experience on Facebook, and I understand that. So I quickly abandoned that method, and I started going more for quality posts that like I would craft and share in specific places. Now, Facebook, though, it's social media. What you have to understand is it's a changing game. The algorithm changes, what's promoted changes. So Facebook, when they first launched their live streams, they were really heavily promoting live streams on Facebook. So if you did Facebook Live, it would go out to a lot more people. Now Facebook Live has been around for a while, so they're not promoting it as heavily as, say, Facebook Stories, which are a little bit newer, but even that is starting to kind of trickle down. But when in the early days, you share a link from YouTube and it's an awesome viral video, and it would just take off. It would get tons of exposure, tons of views, tons of interaction. Now, Facebook and YouTube are competitors because Facebook video is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're monetizing that. So if you send someone off-site, off-platform to a different website, to YouTube, which is a competitor, that's not in Facebook's best interest. They already have people on the platform. They want to keep people on the platform watching their videos, watching their ads. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to prevent you from sharing a YouTube video, but if you share a dedicated Facebook upload, then Facebook's going to promote that much heavier. The algorithm's going to favor it. You're going to get more views on that, more shares, more likes, because Facebook's pushing it. And so it's just figuring out what is going to get you more exposure. So like a couple tricks is, like, one of them I do is I'll embed a YouTube video on my own website, and I'll share a link to my own website different places. In addition to, I still share YouTube links, but I'll do a dedicated embedded post on my website, and then share that through social media. And it doesn't get as many views as a dedicated Facebook upload, but it gets more, and it sends people to YouTube in kind of a roundabout way. So there's little things like that, but Facebook is very instrumental. It helps me connect with my audience. It helps build an engaged group. There's a lot of very useful tools, but it's like the algorithm doesn't like YouTube for an obvious reason.
Right.
That sounds so exhausting.
Yeah. Well, one of the
tired just thinking about it.
What we do here is I broadcast. I pull you guys in through StreamYard, and I broadcast you out through OBS to Mob Crush, which then sends a signal to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And the reason why I do that is for that very reason, because if I take this video later and just share a link to Facebook, it won't get the same attention from Facebook as if I stream it up to Facebook on its own automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a lot to keep up with, though.
I would say, though, that to people who are watching in the chat, and I notice a couple people are saying, grumpy old dude said, I understand 0% of this tech talk.
But he's a content creator and should be listening. Sorry.
I understand that it's overwhelming, and there is this urge from a lot of people too. They hear what some of the larger content creators have gone through on the marketing front to get to this point. And I would say, like, if you're new, don't worry about that yet. Worry about making good content, because if you make fantastic content first, then you'll have something to share. If you get and when I say make great content, you don't have to have, tens of thousands of dollars in equipment. You don't have to have the most crystal clear, high def, beautiful video. Just have a story. Story is king. If you have a story that is compelling, then you work on your delivery and a way to share it that's concise. That's, it can even be a long story, but that the pacing is right. Your storytelling captivates people and pulls them in. When you have that, then you have something that's worth sharing. And then your audience will share it and take it on themselves to share it for you. So that doesn't mean that you should completely neglect the marketing front, but make sure that you nail the story first. That's the most important thing. A lot of people, they think that just because they know how to operate a camera, because they know how to get in front of a camera, that they have a story to tell. I'm like, no, come up with a story. It doesn't have to even be your story. It can be, telling other people's stories. It can be having, other people on your show. Like you're interviewing people, and you can have both. You can have your story and other people's stories. But once you have that, you have a beautiful piece of content, then you can start focusing on, okay, now how do I package this up in a way that I can deliver to people? How do I create a channel that looks professional? How do I share it in a way that's effective? What platforms do I share it on? And then there's plenty of tutorials to get you from, step A to Z.
Absolutely.
If I could dovetail on that, actually, also, I would add one more thing, is knowing your audience. You obviously have your niche audience that you market to. For instance, I'm pretty sure that some of the stuff on my platform, if I tried to do a YouTube video of it, I'd put about 9 out of 10 people asleep with it. But there is that niche market, obviously, that who I'm obviously looking for. So when I'm talking about stuff from hardcore journals, let's say New England Journal of Medicine, talking about very specific things, those are things that I'm going to put out there in a very niche spot, and I'm not just going to widely broadcast it on something like some of my other platforms, which people would look at it and be like, okay, what are you trying to do? Put me to sleep? I'm trying to go directly find those people who are like, hey, I'm a scientist, and that's what I do for a living. I want that. If I want to be a little more lighthearted and just put some gnarly dank memes out there that make fun of something, I have my platform for that. So it's finding the platform and your market. Holy Kool-Aid has a perfect setup. It has this niche, and I absolutely love it. Daily Atheist, it has its niche. I absolutely love it. So it's knowing your niche.
Well, I've been working on that niche. I started mine a year ago in January, but I only worked it a little bit, and then I put it aside and really started working it like a job back in November. So I tell you, it's sometimes it feels like I'm running with my feet in mud, and then other times, but I hear once I break the 1,000 subscribers, it'll kind of start to roll, and with everything changing, the world's changing. That's the least of my concerns right now. I'm just focusing on keeping doing it and having fun, getting good guests on the show, and trying not to screw up the schedule. Kristen in the chat said that thing is, even just talking about is storytelling. And Thomas sounds like he's been a storyteller. Or when you talk, you sound like you're telling a story, and it makes her want to hear more. So I'm sure she's already subscribed to you. But it's a good part of the, especially whenever you're watching your videos, you've got it down.
Well, what Daniel was saying, I think is key is, once you have a great story to tell, figuring out who am I talking to? I'm not going to take that story and then jump over to, a Christian Reddit and be like, hey, everyone, here's this great video on nothing feels like Bible history. It's going to get downvoted to hell. And at the same time, if I were to hop over to, even on the same platform, even on Reddit, but to a different subreddit, to r/atheist vids or something, it's going to get more traction. It's going to get more love. Know the rules of the community you're engaging with. Know the type of group that you're trying to reach, and post there. Now, I think there's also if you get on social media and you're like, okay, I've got a great piece of content. Now I'm going to go and share it on I don't know, Twitter. But maybe you're not very comfortable with Twitter. Maybe you're not very good with Twitter. You just hear that Twitter is the place to share things. So you go over and you post it on Twitter and you're like, I don't understand this platform. I'm just going to throw in the towel. Twitter may take some time, some getting used to, or it may not be the place for you. What I would say is dabble with a bunch of different ones. Find out what you like, what you're comfortable in, and where the audience is. So some people I've noticed, like Godless Mom will, she's very active on Twitter and has great success there. Other people, Daniel has a lot of success on Facebook and in Facebook groups and pages. You know, some people are fantastic at Instagram. Some people are great on Pinterest. Some people are very active on Reddit. And different people grow different platforms, different sizes, different speeds and stuff to different types of communities on various different social media platforms. If you post to one and you're getting no exposure and you keep posting there and keep trying it and you're getting nothing, don't spend as much time on that platform as you are on another one you're having a great amount of success on. You know, we have to allocate our time wisely. So a great example of this, I set up, I got on Tumblr. Tumblr isn't exactly the most hopping platform right now. Do people still say hopping? I don't know. But
I don't know. What's Tumblr?
So I tried Tumblr a couple years ago. I was like, okay, I'm not really getting a whole lot of traction. I was being smart about it too. I was tracking different hashtags, different ways of making notes. I was adding, you know, people trying to build a following in addition to all these other platforms. What I found was I'm not getting a lot of traction on Tumblr, but I set up a service called IFTTT, if this then that, IFTTT.com. And you can link it to different social media platforms. So I set it so that if I make a new video on YouTube, if this, then it cross posts to Tumblr. If this, then that. And it's a very, very simple thing. It's kind of a couple clicks and bam. Now, every time I upload a video to YouTube, this program, if this, then that, sees that upload and it cross posts it to my Tumblr. Now, I don't do that with all of my social media, but because I'm not really active on Tumblr, because I don't really plan to be very active on Tumblr, and because that's not the audience I'm trying to cultivate, but I thought, hey, maybe if I'm using different hashtags, there's a certain trickle of views that'll come in through Tumblr if I'm cross-posting my videos there. So now all my videos will cross-post to Tumblr, and even if over the course of 3-4 years, if, you know, every video I put out gets me, you know, 1 or 2 subscribers from Tumblr, I do 150 videos, you know, that's an additional, you know, 150 or 300 new subscribers that then can also then share my videos out and get more. So it's kind of building this snowball, this cascade of little trickles, kind of creating a river. And so it's figure out how to work smart, but you don't necessarily have to spend all of this time on every single platform. Just find the ones that work for you. And then for the rest of them, if you can automate something, fantastic. If not, then, you know, put in minimal effort on the areas that you don't necessarily, that aren't yielding the most results.
Yeah, a couple of tools that I use since I have multiple brands going on is like, so I dig the kinds of minds that you, Thomas, have, and other people who have similar minds who are like, let's get into the stats. This is fun. Let's explore. Like, I'm just exhausted thinking about this. I'm like, I'm just going to put good shit out and have 100% confidence in my ability to be artistic and vulnerable and transparent, and that people will be drawn to me. That might be totally misled and inaccurate, but I guess I don't really care in the long run. But anyway, point being, as I was going to just share that some of the tools that I use for releasing some of my content without having to check any of the stats of it, if it's actually working or not, is tools like Hootsuite and Later and Friends Plus Me and Buffer. They are all applications that I would say are even simpler than the if this then that application, because there's a bit of formulaic know-how for that particular app. But for Buffer, like, you just set up your you can get free accounts, but it's a limited amount of accounts that you can hook up. But I use Buffer for Dave Warnock's stuff, and I just go in there and set up a message to be released at a particular time, and it pushes out to his Instagram, his Facebook, his Twitter, and then we're done. And I walk away and I feel great, and I don't have to think about any of those stats or anything. And it just makes it so slick. So that's what I would recommend if people are finding themselves somewhere in between Thomas's, like, let's graph this, all of this, right, and like, fuck the internet, I never want to log on again. In the middle is like Hootsuite, Buffer, Later, are all super great applications to get a lot done without a whole lot of thinking.
What was the fourth one you mentioned? Hootsuite, Later, Buffer,
or something. Friends Plus Me.
Friends Plus Me. I have not heard of that.
Yeah, I think it goes out to Twitter and Facebook, but I don't think it has an Instagram hookup. but there's a few that have Instagram hookups, and Hootsuite and Buffer are, and later both hook up to that.
I use Hootsuite. I like Hootsuite because it will cross post and you can schedule posts. My problem is I schedule too many posts a day, and so I'm like, if I can sit down and be like, all right, I've got 5 or 10 posts scheduled to go out every day for the next week, but then I run out of content, and so like by the time that week is up, I'm like, all right, I got to go out and get fresh memes and fresh posts and stuff to share. And if you don't have a team curating 30 posts a week or something, you start to get burned out on finding new fresh content.
Yeah. And that's what, when I'm scrolling through Instagram and just blah, 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 if I find something super funny, I print screen it. And then like at the end of the month, I'll upload all my print screens onto my computer. And then once a month, I queue up memes and stuff to put out onto my social media accounts. But like, there's a way to do all that shit. And there's a way to just be like, fuck, I don't want to do any of this shit. Or something in the middle.
I have it set so if I like a video, it shares it out to my Facebook. And I think I had it set to share out to Twitter too, but I might need to recheck that connection. But that's through If This Then That, and so it's so little effort. It's like I don't even have to hit the share button. I don't have to type up a post. I don't have to, it just takes the title of the video and the link, and it just goes, bam, you like this video, I'm going to share it out to these different platforms. So if I'm watching a video by someone and I'm like, oh wow, this video is very educational, informative, interesting, I just hit the like button and it does the sharing for me.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You and I mean, literally the top 2 YouTubers I've met on streams would be, as far as subscribers, would be you and Godless Engineer, and you both have recommended If This Then That as part of what got you where you were, as part of the tools you use. So I definitely have to look into it. I use Hootsuite too.
I would say my one caveat, the one thing I would caution people to be careful of with it is don't rely entirely on automation. So you can have it automated to, I upload a video and I don't want to take 10 hours now cross-posting it to 20 different places. So you can use it to share out your videos there, but then still check your notification feed and engage with people. So once I post it to Twitter, if people are commenting on that, I don't want to just be a dead Twitter account. That's no good. People they're going to notice you're not engaging with them. They're not going to follow you. They're not really going to engage with you, and your traction on that platform is just going to tank.
Which you can do that on Hootsuite. You can set up feeds so that directly through Hootsuite, you're seeing who's commenting and you can engage through that app, which is why Hootsuite, I'm guessing, is why you really dig that, because then you can stay connected without having to constantly switch back and forth between platforms all the time. It's kind of like a nice dashboard.
For sure.
And I appreciate how with you, Thomas, it's not an either or kind of thing. They're both tools you use. Yeah. I've used Hootsuite right now. I'm still a little tiny YouTube channel, make $0. I get the money I get from this goes to that. There's nothing, but I want to get Hootsuite, but Hootsuite has an X amount of cost, or I'm sure If This Then That probably has an X amount of cost that I need to invest in as well. But I have learned that I can schedule posts with Facebook and TweetDeck. So at least with those two, I can schedule out a month's worth of posts or something like that. Without having to.
Get you about 6 months. Facebook on Pages, they'll give you about up to close to 6 to 7 months. It depends on how Facebook is feeling. I've been able to get stuff almost up to 9 months, and then they change the policy again. But give or take about 6 to 7 months, you could go in advance before they'll say no. That's as far as you're going.
Well, I like to kind of post my content out or stack it out by the week, So on Sunday, I'll be, okay, these are the guests for the week. This week, obviously, I screwed up my guests for today. But these are the guests I have for the week. And then I have all that stuff. And I'll sometimes pump out tweets, and I'll schedule all that, have all that going. It's very methodic. But that's why the notion of doing something like, that's why I do things like Mob Crush. That way I don't have to go do the whole spread them all together. It does it automatically. That's why I'm really looking at the If This Then That, because if it'll make my job easier, if I can stop with all this posting crap somewhere, I could make more content. You
can use these different tools in tandem. So for example, when I first set up If This Then That, one of the things that I did, you have to be really careful how you do it, because if you have it so that when you cross, you can have, if I crossed, or if I post to Instagram, then If This Then That will automatically cross post that same image to Twitter and Facebook and other places. What you have to be careful of is you don't want to have it also set up to, if I make a post to Facebook, that it automatically cross posts it to Instagram and Twitter, because then you'll end up with this potentially infinite loop where you post it to Instagram, it cross posts it to Facebook, then it sees that there's a post on Facebook and posts it to Instagram, and you just suddenly have 10,000 images and you quickly get flagged as spam. But if you have one endpoint where, you know, I post to Instagram, that was my endpoint. And if I post to Instagram, then it posts it to Tumblr, it posts it to Pinterest, it posts it to Twitter or to Facebook, to, you know, Facebook page, Facebook group. You can have it set up like that. And then once you have those steps in place, then you can use a tool like Hootsuite and schedule out for, you know, 2 weeks. You can put, you know, all these images and memes and stuff that you want to post out to Instagram. And then, you know, all these Instagram, you know, kind of as the endpoint, it's then going to cross post those out using IFTTT, but you're scheduling it with Hootsuite. And so you got all of that, and then you just go and take a nap.
That's
But,
awesome.
but yeah. The one downside I think with Instagram is you can have a page that is kind of like a meme page, or, you know, that has stuff like that. But if it's your actual personal page, like I have, you know, my Twitter or Instagram handle is Doubt and About, and it's me personally. And what I found is that if people are following an Instagram page for a person, they probably want to see videos and pictures of that person, and posts that are a picture or video of you. Even if it's a video of you talking about a piece of content that you just made, it's going to get more likes and engagement than just a random meme.
Oh yeah.
So like a Facebook page, on the other hand, you can share memes, you can share videos, you can share all kinds of content. It's a little bit more friendly to various types of content. Pinterest, people don't care if it's memes, that's fine. But on Instagram, they like seeing pictures of you. So just knowing your platform and what type of content appeals to what type of people on what type of platform is helpful.
I could vouch for what Thomas is saying on the Instagram part. Mine is the pseudoscience guy, and every so often I'll post a meme that'll go off to AAPN platform stuff. But for the most part, it's just me being me, and people will just follow it just for that, and just like, oh, that's the guy that does AAPN and all the other crazy stuff on Facebook. But there's him as the person. And I also know a bunch of people will just follow me personally on Facebook. Yeah, I'll share science stuff all the time because that's what I'm known for. But I also get on my, you know, political platform, and I also just talk about me because that's what Facebook is.
Yeah,
selling the personality, or as part of yeah. Kristen wanted to ask Thomas to tell us about the extensive resources list on your website. If you don't mind. Sounds like you got a lot of stuff there.
Well, so I actually set Holy Kool-Aid up as I think when I first got into this, I noticed that around 2008 to 2012, there were a lot of YouTubers who were basically pushing back against religious nonsense on YouTube. That had, you know, 9/11 had happened. You had the, you know, Four Horsemen, you know, releasing their bestsellers. That's Hitchens, Harris, Dawkins, and Dennett. And that stuff had really started to take off. You had a lot of debates. And so everyone was working together in this one massive front against religious nonsense, especially right up until, you know, like you had 8 years of George W. Bush. And especially through the first 4 years of Obama, there was still a lot of traction of, we've got a lot of religious insanity, we have to fight it back. And then around 2012, things started kind of splitting. People had, you know, SJW versus anti-SJW, feminist versus anti-feminist. You had all these divisive positions. How do we approach everything else? And so the community kind of split. And when I got into this and I started making videos, I was like, you know what? I really do not give a shit about, you know, those issues as much as than people realize. They're way more influential than people realize. You know, we can disagree on a million other things, but, you know, we have to have a united front. We have to be able to come together on that issue. And, you know, and then we can fight about everything else in our free time, but that's fine. But I was like, I think a rising tide floats all boats. I want to build a community. I want to bring people together. And so on my website, I was like, I'm just going to give free resources to connect people. So I have, if you go to holykoolaid.com, there's a resources tab, and there's a list of atheist podcasters, there's a list of atheist YouTubers, there's a list of atheist communities, how you can find a local community. There's a bunch of different resources and tools to find local communities. And I've got everything. There's organizations that don't necessarily like each other, that don't necessarily get along, that don't necessarily play nice with each other. There's YouTubers that can't stand each other. You know, I've got everyone. I don't discriminate by channel or content. I'm like, are these atheists who are pushing back against religious nonsense? And there are people listed there. It's supposed to be a comprehensive tool. So I've got everyone from, you know, Steve Shives on one end to atheism is unstoppable on the other. You might hate both of them. You might absolutely loathe both of them. It's not me making a statement about someone's character, about the quality of their content. It's just, are they fighting against religious nonsense? And I've got all of it. And, you know, and hopefully it's a useful tool for people, and they can find, you know, something that appeals to them. They can find a community. They can find, what else do I think I also have, I also have a list of conferences. So, and as a conference organizer, I do have a little featured thing next to Faithless Forum, because it's my website. I say, this is my conference, you know, full disclosure. But then I've got, you know, American Atheists, FFRF, SciCon. I've got, you know, kind of all the big ones in the States. And then I've got a bunch of others. I got some international ones as well around the world that people can go to.
Well, that's really been one of the things that I've harped on since the beginning was, you know, there's the American Atheists, there's the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Do they talk? How much do they talk? Is there enough communication? There's a lot of people doing a lot of work. We're all sawing. We're all spending a lot of time sawing, but we're not building the same house. We're not doing the same thing. And then the more I got into it, the more I learned they actually are. They are talking and discussing things. Yeah. But actually, before all this went down, I was flirting with the American Atheists about becoming the director for the state of New Mexico.
Yeah. I want to put one caveat in there, and that's, I'm not saying that you have to associate with, or that you have to, you know, be friends with, or even like every one of these content creators. I'm not saying, you know, there are people who can be toxic. There are people who can have positions and views within this community who can be toxic. And, you know, there are people who can do more harm than good. And I completely acknowledge that. What my main point is that more often than not, I've seen that we find reasons to divide rather than reasons to come together. And if I can bring more people together and unite people on the fronts that if religious organizations can be split into 10,000 different denominations and disagree on everything across the board, but they can come together as a political movement and form this powerhouse that gets someone like Donald Trump into office, there's no reason that we can't set aside some of our differences to say, you know what, I hate your guts. I disagree with you on everything. I think you're a horrible, toxic person. But like, these are the fronts that like we need to fight. We need to push for. We need to come together and make a stand on. I'm not going to say who you have to associate with. I'm not going to say who you have to affiliate with, or even that you have to. But I do think that if we can, in general, as a community, find points of like unifying points and commonalities, then I think we'll be stronger for it.
True. And I was surprised whenever I've ducked my head into the atheist community. I've been an atheist for years. I wrote a book a long time ago about atheism, blah, 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 blah. But I didn't get into the community until about a year ago. And I was very surprised by the division, the fighting, the infighting, just within atheists. Or like one of our commenters made a point about atheists or agnostics. What about the atheists agnostics who claim you're not really atheist? That's a whole fight that people were having. It's just a blown up mess. I got no time for that. There are mothers out there denying their children medicine right now because of Jesus Christ. They're the Blitzwatch or Blitzkrieg or Blitz, whatever they're called, the Blitzorg.
Project Blitz.
Thank you. They're out there and they're working against us right now. They're trying to push laws all over the country, and we're going to sit here and argue amongst each other about what we call each other.
They're you know, denying evolution and trying to make it so that you can't teach it in public schools and you teach creationism instead. They're, you know, fighting against reproductive rights and trying to take away a woman's right to choose. You know, that you have family members shunning their kids and kicking them out of the house and, you know, pushing them to suicide in many cases. You have discrimination against gay people and a pushback against gay marriage up until it was legal. And even still, there's, they realized that they lost that battle. And so now they've moved on to depriving trans rights.
Right.
You have so many different fronts. And now with the coronavirus, you have massive, massive churches that are, asking for exempt status on these bans for groups over 10. And they're meeting.
It's beyond just that. They're also wanting money as well, because they lost their ability to con their believers into forking out the money that they no longer have.
And these are groups that they haven't been paying taxes for, ever since they were formed. They've never paid taxes, and yet they want, support and help and stuff. And they're becoming focal points for the virus to spread. Yep. And it's not just in the US. You look at, the Orthodox Church in places like, Georgia and Armenia, you look in Eastern Europe, and they're taking communion with the same spoon. They're kissing the same icons without disinfecting them. They're gathering in a group and singing, belting out, which it causes, if you cough, you can, spread droplets. Well, if you're singing, you're also, belting your voice out in little spittle bits and stuff, or spreading the virus in these densely packed groups of predominantly old people who are the most susceptible to the coronavirus. You have churches. There was one church in South Korea that in the early days of the spread was responsible for roughly 60% of all cases in the country. And then the leader he claimed that he was Jesus Christ. It was more of a cult, but he said that he was the second coming of Christ. And he's like, well, I don't want to give up the list of my members because this is secret private information. So he actively hampered them being able to track down and quarantine members of his community. And it just exploded from there. And so you have all over the world, you have religions, not just Christianity. You've got, Muslim communities that will actively hamper efforts to use. There was one Ayatollah who was saying that he didn't want people to use Western medicine because Western medicine is haram, or it's not halal in Arabic. It's basically, this is not, it's un-Islamic. It's not, it would be kind of the equivalent of kosher. If you're not familiar with religious laws on like what is clean and unclean. And so he was telling his congregants to use this, essential oil that it would stop the spread of the coronavirus. And meanwhile, you have, in his local region of Qom, you had the virus just taking off like wildfire. It was like the hub of the viral spread. You've got Jewish communities that are basically almost cult-like. You have, I have friends. I went to Israel just a few months ago, and if you go, I think it's just south of Tel Aviv, there's a kind of a cult called Bnei Brak, and it's an ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. And they're saying, we're absolutely going to keep meeting. We're absolutely going to keep having schools. They've cut their community off from the internet and from the news and outside news sources. And they're blaming the coronavirus on various conspiracy theories and pseudoscience and superstitions. One that I saw was that they were saying coronavirus was spread because Jewish women were wearing non-Jewish wigs, and that's not kosher. And so it's just this alarming amount of pseudoscience from all across the spectrum. Every single religious leader is promoting not every single religious leader, but every single religion has leaders in it promoting pseudoscience and BS. And when they do say, hey, like various Catholic churches were saying, when the holy water is empty right now to prevent the spread of coronavirus, the churches are shut down. And it's like, you know what? I'm glad you're following scientific guidelines, but you're also revealing the fact that when you don't and you rely on faith, your faith fails. And when you do, you're showing that the emperor has no clothes. And it's more apparent than ever that like this religious stuff is complete bullshit. And hopefully people will start to realize that, but it is incredibly harmful. And I think that now is a tremendous opportunity for us to just, all we have to do is just step back and show it. Mm-hmm. And hopefully people will, not be blind to that.
At what point does it constitute murder? At what point does running your church and insisting people come gather, even though I mean, you've been told you're going to deny it, but at what point does it constitute murder? I'm just kind of curious.
That's been something I have argued about well before the coronavirus, and back when we have the anti-vaxxers and whatnot. I've made that same argument where someone should be absolutely culpable if they refused for non-medical reasons to get a vaccination for their children, and those kids got someone else sick and they died. They should be, legally culpable for that, and it should be same kind of grounds. It's opens up a legal can of worms, but it needs to be opened, and this whole thing has outlined some pretty nasty dissonance in people as well. I'm pretty sure you've seen the woman who was interviewed in her car as she was leaving the church service, when she said she was bathed in the blood of Jesus, therefore she was protected from the coronavirus. And these people honestly believe this, which is frightening to say the least. That they think
Jesus' blood have the necessary antibodies and immunity that.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's the vaccine of Jesus.
It's scary. And Thomas, you were mentioning the singing earlier. There was a choir, some choir, I think, Seattle. Over on the East Coast. Seattle. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
No, it was in Seattle. They had
West Coast.
They were practicing social distancing. They had
decooted and everything.
That's where they kind of figured out that, oh, hey, crap, singing. They were even being spaced apart. They weren't touching or anything. No high fives, no handshakes. And what was it like? Almost the entire congregation got sick. 2 of them died.
Yeah.
I will say, in defense of that one specific choir, I think when they met, this was several weeks ago before everyone was saying, hey, don't meet, and they were still following the guidelines by the CDC. So I don't want to harp on them too much specifically, but I have seen a lot of church groups that straight up go against what the FDA and CDC and NIH are saying. And just real quick on that note, there was a pastor, Rodney Howard Brown, who is a mega pastor, I believe in Florida, who's on Trump's evangelical advisory committee. He's in a massive position of leadership. He's one of these scumbag prosperity doctrine preachers bilking people out of their money, and he just got arrested for ignoring the law on gatherings and held his church anyways, putting people at risk.
Didn't he go right back to doing it anyways and is claiming First Amendment BS?
I know that he posted bond, and it was some outrageously small amount. I think don't quote me on this, but I think it was like $700 bond or some stupid low.
Yeah, I seem to remember him claiming that it was a constitutional issue and that they're going to actually sue over it. And it's just like, well,
you don't have a constitutional right to criminal negligence.
Well, you also have, even when you don't have those people, the church leaders, even when the church leader isn't flaunting the law, even when they're not doing it, the little old ladies are going, hey, y'all come over to my house, and they're gathering in their homes or in their in groups separately outside of the church. So it's one way or the other. It's just
it reminds me of pox parties.
Yeah.
Would it be completely tone deaf to say that this is almost a practice of the Darwin Awards?
Brother,
it is.
I made a post.
That's because unfortunately we're also killing our healthcare workers in the process.
That's true.
So you're also killing off your best and brightest at the same time.
Oh, it's not. It doesn't just affect them, and so it's I don't want to say like, oh, what does it matter if they get infected? Obviously, there's transmission and there's spreaders, and sometimes they're asymptomatic spreaders, and they think that they're fine, and maybe they are fine, and then they're going and spreading it to 20 other people. But in terms of this predominantly affecting or people who are going out and completely ignoring the guidelines and medicine, and especially the conspiracy theorists and the religious people and stuff who are putting themselves at risk, they're putting others at risk too, but it almost seems to me like it would disproportionately target and wipe out some of the people who have that mindset. And I don't think that it's a good thing that anyone dies. I don't want to be misquoted on that,
of course,
but it almost seems a little bit like karma, that the people who are completely ignoring science are doing it to their own detriment. And
I made
They
quite a
also
long.
vote in a way that's to their own detriment.
Yeah, they do that too.
Well, they won't vote anymore if the coronavirus
That's
gets
true.
them.
I made quite a lengthy post about a week ago about how is it wrong for me to go, you know what? Let them die. If they're the ones who are sitting there going, you know, you got that AIDS because you're gay and you deserve to die. Well, why can't we say that about them? They do it all the time. They blame
Because we're no better than them, clearly, Chris.
Well,
I was about to say we're better than that.
Well, in this case, it's actually true though. It's not. I'm not saying that we're better than them. In the case of homosexuality, it's not judgment for God. The hurricanes aren't because there's a bunch of gays in that area, and yet these people talk like that. But in our case, we're actually being very, very specific and true. It's accurate. If they're going to deny these laws, they're going to gather when they're not supposed to and let Jesus protect them instead of defaulting on science.
But
it's their own thing. It's the
But
ancillary
but
deaths.
the children of those parents didn't have a choice in that.
I mentioned that in the post.
They're not in a vacuum.
And we can't.
Not even that. I would say that like these are still people, Chris. I mean, these are still people.
Absolutely.
People's lives can be changed. They still have value. They still, you know, for as harmful as this specific position that they may hold is, it doesn't mean that they don't do a tremendous amount of good in other areas. It's obviously there's a wide.
Actually, I'm just actually saying the same thing you were.
Yeah, no, and I'm not
glorifying it.
Yeah, no, I before I get misquoted and stuff, I don't want to come off as celebrating the death of anyone. I think that it's to some extent almost ironic that this is happening to these people. At the same time, these are our aunts and uncles and parents and grandparents and people who we love and care about who are still in the religion, and I still have hope for. If my mind could be changed, if other people's minds can be changed, I think that no one is completely beyond being reachable. And even if we can't completely change their mind, maybe we can push them further down this spectrum of ideas. But I don't know. I think that the solution is not for a virus to kill everyone off, but I do find it somewhat ironic that the people who deny science are the ones who are doing it to their detriment.
Speaking of kind of out there stuff, have you guys seen the latest out there conspiracy theory? Thomas might know what I'm talking about. That 5G internet is causing COVID-19.
Yep, it's bullshit.
I've heard of it.
Well, of course it is, but it's going around. It's making its rounds just like the virus.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard. Well, these people. There's a lot of people out there who believe anything. Apparently. Well,
yeah, they got all these videos of people going up next to these things, looking at like, are they emitting radio waves? Well, of course they're emitting radio waves, but it's the frequency and this is non-ionizing radiation. They don't understand any of this stuff.
Not even that. Even if it was ionizing radiation, even if it was extremely powerful cancer causing like it doesn't matter. It's not a virus. You can take all of that, yes. All of the X-rays in the world, you can blast them at cell cultures with human cells, and you're not going to have viruses pop into existence in that culture. It's just not going to happen. We've known what causes viruses. We know, like, the reason that we had smallpox for thousands of years, literally from the time of ancient Egypt, we have records of smallpox. And yet, for some reason, these viruses have existed. They've mutated. We've had, the Black Death, the bubonic plague. We had the Spanish flu. We have all these different viruses in history, and they've existed, and then vaccines come into existence, and we've studied viruses. We figure out how they work. We stop them, and bam, no more smallpox on planet Earth. And the same can be said of polio. The same can be said of measles. The same can be said of the rotavirus and all these other viruses that we've protected against. Like, this is not new. This is not new information. We know how viruses work, and
ignorance be damned.
Very technical level, we know how they work. And so then for someone to come along and be like, oh yeah, it's not viruses, it's your cells just excreting toxins from waves, and that sounds technical, right? No.
It's got radiation there,
right?
That cell phone cancer.
It does your head in. It's like what happened to like just high school level biology? Like did all of these people drop
Remember that kid that was sleeping in the back corner of the class?
That's him.
That's the one that now has internet access.
That's the guy.
Hey, grumpy old dude, God. Grumpy old dude wants to ask, what about the racist group saying they're trying to weaponize it? Have y'all heard about that? That they they claim, I don't know how accurate it is. It sounds pretty stupid to me. Like you'd more likely infect yourself.
I hear stupid every day. I feel like I'm almost a foremost expert on the Dunning-Kruger effect now.
Like a magnet
just
for
hearing this. I feel like a lightning rod. I mean, I found it a group that just makes fun of stupid, unfounded nonsense, and this all I hear all day long. So, yeah, I have heard that one. I also heard that it was a plot to take over the world. It was a plot to sterilize people, which blows my mind because I mean, how are they picking and choosing who to sterilize?
Well. Here's the thing. It's like you've got Iran and Israel both hate each other, and both are being ravaged by this virus. You've got, it's spreading throughout Italy. You've got it spreading throughout the US, just hitting anyone and everyone that it comes in contact with. And, it's also hitting, China and, Korea and everywhere. No one is immune to this. So what country is doing this mass sterilization or mass
oh yeah, there was that, and there was what was the other one that I heard? The Virginia plant. There was a Virginia bioweapons facility dropped a what was it? They dropped a they did an aerial spray over Wuhan, and it was the United States who did it, and it grew out of control, and now we're reaping the repercussions of it. That's another one that I saw going around.
Why? Wuhan is
no rhyme or reason, but that one has been going around. I saw several of the anonymous groups, and it made its way into these people actually starting to believe this crap.
Because people who, the people who would have the resources to be able to do something like this could, one, totally do it without getting caught or noticed by the Chinese government and the Chinese military in the heart of China. And flying a U.S. jet over Chinese airspace would raise some serious red flags in China.
That'd be an act of war.
Yeah, but then dumping this and for us to not know the spread rate, the R naught value of the virus, for us to not know that this would get out of hand and not know that it's a pandemic and all of that. It's like if that were the case, then Trump would be even more incompetent than he already is, which is kind of hard to believe.
That's difficult.
It's hard to, I mean, you're really scraping the bottom of that barrel there.
On top of that, it's like we know how viruses mutate. We know how they change. It happened with MERS. It happened with the bird flu. It happened with the swine flu. We can trace it back to specific species and see these viruses in those species, and then see a slight little mutation, a slight little change that then allows it to hop to human hosts or to hop from human host to human host. We can track down how long this virus has been around by you take tests of it and you sequence the genome.
Oh, it's even in the name. It was SARS-CoV-2 SARS-2/COVID-19.
Yeah,
I remember. I'm probably butchering it somehow, but I know there's that -2 there for a reason.
Yeah. Well, and in I think it was December or January, they were wanting to know how long has this virus been around. And you can tell that by basically taking 100 people or 1,000 people and stuff from various areas where the virus has hit, and sequence the genome and see how different is it, how many mutations have there been. If it's almost exactly the same, you're like, this hasn't been around very long. And these are all cases that are originating out of this one province. So you track it down to the region where it came from, and you look at it and you say, okay, is this virus, is it in any other species? Is it, and in this case it was bats, and then it jumped to pangolin, and we were able to sequence it in those animals and see, hey, this is very, very similar. It made the hop to human cases. This is 100% in line with how viruses spread. It's in an unhygienic environment. I could make the case for vegetarianism now. I'm not going to do that. But you can see, though, you can trace this back and you can understand that, okay, this is what we know about viruses and everything lines up and it all makes sense. Or you could take the paranoid route and be like, but governments and conspiracy theories. It's like, okay, prove it. Well, they're covering it up. That's why there's no evidence. Or there's some weird
wake up, sheeple.
Or there's some weird anonymous, like non-credible person who's like, basically putting out bullshit. And it's like, okay, what are their sources? Where's this coming from? Do they have any credibility?
The funniest thing is when they cite a source and you look up their source and their source contradicts them. That's always so much fun.
Yeah, and that's
as a side note.
That's oftentimes the case. Is you track it down, and you see these, like there was the climate change deniers that were saying, look at all these hundreds of climate scientists who deny climate change and all these studies, and then you actually track them down and you go one by one through them. I think Potholder54 did a great video on this where he looked at them and he's like, okay, these are all the people who they're saying are experts. He's like, these are all the people who are dentists.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember that. I was dying of laughter.
They're not climate scientists, not Scientologists.
What they did was people with bachelor's degrees. They just looked for bachelor's or above, and it was self-reported. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then oftentimes then the ones that remain, you look at like what studies are they citing, and he like went one by one through those studies and he's like, this doesn't say that, this says the opposite. And then you had like a bunch of the people listed in that study, and when people reached out to them for comment, they said, oh, I absolutely don't agree with that, with being on that list. I've asked them to take my name off of it multiple times, and I 100% believe in human caused climate change. It's not a belief, it's backed in facts and science, and the evidence lays it out. And so it's you have to track down the source, you have to go to the experts, and when you don't do that, then Bob's blog can cite all of the scientists say this, but then not give a source or cite a source that contradicts his claim.
And
you'll have the one bullshit outlier.
Right. Well, there's a lot of
Carl's Jr.
Yeah, there's just a ton of misinformation out there from every corner. Just covers it up.
Well, the question too is, even if you do find one expert PhD or MD or whatever who is putting forth one position, why is it that the scientific consensus goes completely against them? And
think of the whole tobacco thing. You had the doctors sitting there testifying in front of Congress that nicotine is not addictive and it doesn't cause cancer. It's like, you had two doctors and they were both paid off by Marlboro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and so in those cases, it's like, okay, do scientists get things wrong? Yes. Do scientists make mistakes? Yes. Can the scientific consensus be wrong? Yes. But what do the studies show? What does the data show? Does the data play out in a way that is a big enough sample size, that is controlled, that that you can actually figure out is there a causal connection between these two things? Is this a legitimate clinical study, or is this some
exploratory or
and has it been replicated? There are ways that you can tell if something is factual or not. And usually if you have something that goes against the scientific consensus that is a very well done, reputable study, it makes massive waves. Studies like that get cited. They're not going to have, they're going to have a massive impact factor. When you look them up and you see like, hey, this is a, reputable, peer-reviewed study that was published in a reputable journal that's not a pay-to-play predatory journal. And, this is making waves, like this is having an impact. Whereas on the other hand, if it's just some fringe rogue scholar that goes up against the scientific consensus, even if they are an expert in the field, you have to ask, why are they having a position that goes against 99%
conk out
experts? Why is that the case? And if they make a strong case, then usually it has an impact. If they don't, then usually there's a reason why they don't.
Right. I think we lost Daniel there.
Maybe so.
He looks frozen.
Looks like he froze up. Haha.
Oh, there we go.
There you are. You were hiding behind a picture of you.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Well, you're still hiding. Yeah, I hear your voice.
Video frozen, but I can hear
him.
back?
We hear you. Well, we hear your voice. It's just your face is not moving. Well, guys, it's been an hour and 45 minutes. I only beg you to come on for an hour. So thank you for hanging out. I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. If you There he is. Hi, Daniel. He made it back. So thank you very much. I'll go ahead and wrap it up. I want to say thank you to Marie for co-hosting with me today. It was her first time. She did wonderful. I didn't have to taser her through the internet or anything. I was ready to. I had the button over there. I was ready to press the button.
That was an option
for free. I charge you next time.
Yay!
And thank you to Daniel and Thomas both for joining me today and for forgiving me for the schedule confusion. It's great to have you both on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. It's good to talk to you on the stream, and Marie, it's good to finally meet you on air.
Yeah, you too. I'm going to be recording with Eric right after this. He's probably waiting outside your door.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Wow.
On his show?
Yeah, on his new podcast.
Okay, cool. Well then, and it won't be live though.
No.
Okay. Well then, when that lands, make sure to go check it out.
There you go. Yeah, and for you who are watching, don't forget to subscribe to Holy Kool-Aid. You know, Daniel, you don't have a channel, do you?
Not on YouTube, but you can look us up on Facebook.
Facebook.
Atheists Against Pseudoscientific Nonsense. That's the big one, and then it all trickles down from there. If it's in the atheist community on Facebook, chances are you could find me.
Excellent.
Not to be confused with atheists in favor of pseudoscientific knowledge.
Oh, by the way, yeah, you've made it when someone has made a satire of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I was so honored when someone satirized our organization. That's how I know we made it.
There you go. You've reached your peak. Hey, Eric's still there. Thank you, Eric. I'd like to get on your show. Right? ask when lots of people are watching. That way there's pressure and he can't say no. All right. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful. I hope you guys have a great week. It's hump day, or so they tell me. It doesn't feel like hump day anymore. It feels like it. But thank you all for joining me, and we will see you tomorrow.